You're watching News Pulse and I'm Swati Joshi. World's most volatile waterway, the Strait of Hormuz, is now ground zero in a global showdown. Donald Trump has turned up the heat with abuse, threats and a ticking deadline. He has two demands from Iran: reopen the Strait of Hormuz and make a peace deal, or else, he said, hell will rain on Iran. Iran has time till April 8th, 6:30 a.m. Indian Standard Time. The US president has said that if Iran fails to open the key waterway, he will bomb power plants and bridges. We are now in the final hours before a possible escalation in West Asia war. The clock is ticking, and the next few hours could decide whether this war further escalates. This is not the first time Trump has threatened to blow Iran's power plants, which tens of millions of Iranians rely on to power schools, hospitals, residences, and other basic aspects of civilian life. He's been making contrasting claims as well on Hormuz, shifting deadline too. So there's a timeline on how Donald Trump kept changing his stance on Hormuz from week 1 to week 6. Iran has rejected what they call is an illogical 15-point US plan. It says talks cannot happen under threat. Iran's foreign ministry spokesperson Ismail Baghai said Tehran will defend its country with all its might when necessary. And remember, Donald Trump is going to speak. Will it change the course of the war? Let's take that across to the expert who's joining us on the broadcast. On the broadcast, we are joined by retired Marine Intelligence Officer, Lieutenant Colonel Hal Kempfer. Colonel Kempfer, thank you very much for joining us here on Times Now.
Swati, thanks for having me on.
Let me first ask you about the high-stakes rescue mission that Donald Trump has described as the most daring in the history of the United States. Your thoughts?
Well, if you look at the high-stakes mission to rescue the pilot, that was an amazing combination of intelligence and putting together operational know-how and basically going deep into Iran to get him out. There was a deception campaign to mislead the Iranians as to where he was. So that worked out, I have to tell you, one of the more successful missions, even though it was at a big cost. We lost two large aircraft, what's called MC-130s. We lost a small helicopter. One can say that we also lost an A-10 Warthog ground attack aircraft because that was damaged, it was lost at some point during the operation. So that was very costly, but it was an amazing operation. Now, as far as the Strait goes, yes, there has been some shifts in terms of what the U.S. position is. I think we're going to find out in a few hours. I understand the President Trump is going to speak. I'm hoping he'll shed some light on where this is. What I heard as of this morning was he was hopeful that a negotiation, some sort of agreement, might be reached. I know there was a 45-day ceasefire, a proposal that was out there that was being proposed to going both to Iranians and to the U.S. I believe Pakistan is involved with brokering that proposal, but we'll see which way it goes. As of right now, the Iranians have basically turned down any type of ceasefire agreement, so we'll see what happens.
So, let me then directly ask you, sir, questions are also being raised about the real objective. I don't know if you're aware of the theories that are doing the rounds. There are people who are saying there was more than meets the eye in the rescue mission. And in fact, Iran's foreign ministry has said that this was an attempt to seize uranium at Iran's nuclear sites. How do you respond to that?
I heard that. I don't know how they made that jump. It just doesn't line up. There was nothing there that would tie to that. I heard that. So I saw that this morning that they made that claim. The F-15 in question is not something you would use to seize anything at all. And the mission itself was very limited to getting that weapons systems officer who was missing on the ground, as to getting him back. I heard that, and I can't see. It's interesting, but it's, as far as I can tell, it's just pure propaganda. There's nothing that indicates there was any attempt to do anything. Certainly the U.S. has expressed interest in basically getting that enriched uranium out of Iran, because they don't want Iran to certainly produce a nuclear weapon. And with 60% enriched uranium, it's just a small hop to go to 90%, in which case it's weapons grade capable. And so that's a big concern. That's a big concern, certainly that has been a concern for the international community and the United Nations for some time. But as far as the Iranian claim, there's just nothing I can see that even connects that.
Colonel Kempfer, I request you to please stay on with us on the broadcast. There's some breaking input coming in. I quickly want to tell our viewers about that. Saudi Arabia has evacuated Riyadh's key financial hub. the King Abdullah Financial District amid fears of possible Iranian missile or drone attacks. Companies have been instructed to keep the staff away with the evacuation order in place. Let me quickly go across to my colleague Mayank for more on this. Mayank, Saudi Arabia has evacuated the key financial hub. Of course, there are fears, a threat of a strike.
Oh, it's very logical, because when we use a term called collateral, these are the kind of things which happen. And to make our viewers understand, I have got two examples which Times Now covered from ground when we were in Tel Aviv. And the first example is of Naheria. I mean, the missile which fell down, it had created pebbles which shot like a bullet. And there was a person who was around 25 to 30 meters away from the place of impact. That person was embedded with lots of sharpenels and those pebbles, and he had lost his life. The second example is of an Indian, Mr. Tirupati, who was from Hyderabad. There were two glasses, the glass pieces, which embedded into his neck. So what I'm trying to signify is that, I mean, after understanding the kind of projectiles which are being fired and the kind of effects which these weapons are creating or missiles are creating, it is going into an area. The third example I would wish to quote is that of Eshtaol. There were two missiles which fell down, and the impact was felt in an area of almost 150 meters. So if you see what I mean to say, and I'm trying to underline and signify, is that there will always be collateral. And the places, the leadership or the people who are at the deciding positions might be measuring all these things. They will factor all these things. And as per that, they would be keeping their own people from away from harm. So this is the kind of decision which we might see if we'll see the war getting protracted further. I mean, this is apart from the kind of strategic aspects we are talking about.
Of the threat, you're saying that companies have been asked to halt operations. Mayank, do stay on with us. I want to quickly take that across to Colonel Kempfer as well. Colonel Kempfer, as we speak, tensions continue to escalate. Donald Trump has set a deadline, but as per sources in the Iranian government, they have called the 15-point plan illogical. They are setting their own terms and conditions. They say if US and Israel can give an assurance that they'll never strike them again, only then there can be permanent peace. How will we reach a deal this way?
Well, it'll be interesting. The Iranians have placed this condition. They say that they want to put some sort of deal where that Iran will never be struck again, and it seems to be regardless of its behavior. The fear is, of course, that if there was a ceasefire today, that they might actually recover that nuclear material and then try to turn it into a nuclear weapon. And at that point, I don't see any way they could avoid some sort of military action from the U.S., Israel, or from others to try and stop that from happening. So I don't know that there's any pathway that I've seen, diplomatically speaking, to put that assurance into place. It's an interesting position, but I don't see that. What's interesting is if Iran was to attack the financial district in Riyadh, this breaking news that just happened, I don't know, I can't find a connection where a military strike in the financial district of Riyadh would be considered a military imperative. Now, if you're striking, for example, with the U.S. talking about striking power plants, a lot of those power plants, certainly the bridges, have application to supporting their military effort, their military industrial complex, their defense industrial base, if you will. So there's a military purpose there. In addition, of course, there's the civilian side also uses the same power. So there is under international law, the laws of armed conflict, there is a military connection that you can make to that targeting. Hitting the financial district, I can't see any connection that would be something that would have a military connection. I think that's Iran punishing Saudi Arabia for supporting the U.S. during the war. Basically, just Iran punishing Saudi Arabia, period. And I don't need to explain that Iran and Saudi Arabia don't always get along. They have very different views. Iran is Shiite, Saudi Arabia is Sunni, right, amongst other many things. So, yeah.
Okay. One last question very quickly, Colonel Kempfer. Now, the timeline on Strait of Hormuz has been changing quite a lot with the deadlines being extended by Donald Trump. Many are saying that he's losing patience, he's frustrated. That also reflects in the post that he put out that was written with expletives.
Absolutely. That was one of the more amazing things I've ever seen come from a president of the United States. And I think that does certainly indicate that he is extremely frustrated with the Iranians and extremely frustrated with the Strait of Hormuz situation. Strait of Hormuz doesn't just bring out oil. That's a huge part of it. And of course, a lot of that oil comes to Asia. It comes to India. This is a huge part of it, but also fertilizer. This is the planting season, and a lot of fertilizer comes out, especially after the Ukraine, Russia invaded Ukraine, that cut off a huge fertilizer. So a lot of countries moved over to using the Persian Gulf. So that's a huge thing as well.
All right, Lieutenant Colonel Kempfer, thank you very much for speaking with us. Thank you for giving us your time.